One man buys a rental property. Another buys index funds. 20 years later, they both end up wealthy. But one of them paid for it with stress, debt, sleepless nights, leaking pipes, and phone calls at 2 a.m. And the other? He barely touched anything. The scary part? Most people choose without ever understanding the full price of either path. And that mistake quietly steals decades of their life. Because this isn't really about stocks versus real estate. It's about freedom. And most people are calculating wealth completely wrong. Jake and Marcus start in the exact same place, same age, same city, same salary, same $50,000 saved. But one decision sends their lives in completely different directions. Jake buys a rental property, 3-bedroom house, $250,000 purchase price, 20% down, 30-year mortgage. The classic wealth-building move. Marcus does something far less exciting. He dumps his $50,000 into a total stock market index fund. No property, no leverage, no tenants, no fancy strategy, just automatic investing. And immediately, Jake feels richer. That's the first psychological trap nobody talks about. Real estate feels powerful. You can drive past it, touch it, show it to people. It gives you status. Marcus, he gets an email confirmation. That's it. Nobody brags about index funds at dinner parties. Nobody posts screenshots of VTI on Instagram. But this is where investing becomes dangerous, because humans confuse visibility with success. And over the first few years, Jake feels like he made the greatest decision of his life. Rent checks start hitting his account, $1,800 a month. He tells friends he's making passive income. He drives past the house and thinks, I own that. And psychologically, that feeling is addictive. Meanwhile, Marcus logs into his brokerage account once every few months. Number goes up, number goes down, nothing feels real, no excitement, no identity boost, no proof he's winning. And this is where most people quit index investing, because boring feels broken. But then reality slowly starts creeping into Jake's life. And this is where the math changes completely. Because the rent check is not profit, it never was. Vacancies happen, repairs happen, tenants leave, roofs leak, water heaters explode, property taxes rise, insurance rises. Suddenly that easy $470 monthly cash flow starts evaporating. One repair, gone. One bad tenant, gone. One empty month, gone. And then comes the thing real estate influencers almost never calculate honestly, time. Jake is now coordinating repairs during lunch breaks, answering late-night calls, showing the property on weekends, managing stress constantly. He didn't just buy an investment, he accidentally bought another job. And here's the uncomfortable part. Most landlords dramatically underprice their own labor. They call it passive because they don't send themselves invoices. Meanwhile, Marcus keeps doing absolutely nothing. No tenants, no emergencies, no contractors ghosting him. He just keeps buying index funds every month like a machine. And at first, the growth feels painfully slow. That's because compounding is psychologically invisible in the beginning. Year 1, small gains. Year 2, small gains. Year 3 still feels unimpressive, but then something dangerous starts happening beneath the surface. The gains begin earning gains, and this is the moment investing stops looking linear and starts looking exponential. Most people never stay invested long enough to experience this phase. That's the tragedy, because the first 5 years of compounding feel almost disappointing. The next 15 feel unbelievable. And while Marcus is quietly compounding, Jake is discovering something brutal about leverage. Leverage magnifies everything, not just gains, stress too. When the property appreciates, Jake feels brilliant. When expenses pile up, the entire investment suddenly feels fragile. And this is why real estate creates emotional extremes. You feel richer faster, but you also feel pressure faster. A stock investor can ignore their portfolio for months. A landlord usually can't ignore a broken pipe. Now here's where things get really interesting. By year 10, they're shockingly close. Jake's equity has grown massively because leverage amplified appreciation. Marcus's portfolio exploded because compounding accelerated. On paper, they almost look tied, but emotionally, their lives feel completely different. Jake spent a decade managing uncertainty. Marcus spent a decade ignoring noise. And that difference matters more than most people realize. Because wealth isn't just about net worth. It's about how much of your life the wealth extraction process consumes. That changes everything. And by year 20, the final numbers become almost disturbing. Jake's property is now worth close to $500,000. Marcus's index fund portfolio also approaching $500,000. Two completely different roads. Arriving somewhere strangely similar, but the emotional cost was nowhere near the same. Jake had debt hanging over him for decades. Marcus had market crashes. Jake dealt with tenants. Marcus dealt with volatility. Jake concentrated risk into one property. Marcus spread risk across thousands of companies. And suddenly, the question isn't, which investment made more money? The real question becomes, what kind of life do you want while building wealth? Because this is the hidden truth nobody says out loud. Real estate can absolutely build wealth. Stocks can absolutely build wealth. But both demand something different from your personality. Real estate rewards control. Stocks reward patience. Real estate rewards involvement. Stocks reward emotional discipline. And most people fail because they choose based on hype, instead of choosing based on who they actually are. That mistake costs years, sometimes decades. Now here's the twist that changes the entire conversation. If Marcus simply increased his monthly investing by a few $100s, the compounding curve becomes terrifying. That's the hidden superpower of index investing. Tiny, consistent increases create massive long-term changes. But in real estate, scaling usually means another mortgage, another tenant, another set of problems, another layer of risk. And this is why wealthy people eventually stop arguing about stocks versus real estate. Because the smartest investors understand something everyone else misses. The goal was never to win the debate. The goal was freedom. Some people want cash flow. Some people want simplicity. Some people want leverage. Some people want peace. And the worst financial decisions happen when people copy strategies designed for someone else's psychology. That's the real danger. Not stocks, not real estate, blind imitation. Because the internet will always tell you one path is superior. Real estate guys say stocks are fake money. Stock investors say landlords bought themselves a second job. Both sides cherry-pick the math. Both sides ignore the trade-offs, and the people watching, they're left confused. But the answer was never universal. The answer was always personal. So the next time somebody tells you real estate always wins, or index funds always win, ask them one simple question. Did you count everything? The money, the time, the stress, the risk, the freedom? Because the answer that includes everything is the only answer that actually matters. And honestly, that answer might completely change the way you see wealth forever. And maybe that's the biggest lie the internet ever sold about money. That there's one perfect path, one perfect investment, one perfect strategy. But wealth was never built by copying strangers online. It was built by understanding yourself. Because at the end of the day, the real flex isn't owning rentals. And it isn't having a giant stock portfolio either. The real flex is waking up without financial fear. It's having options, freedom, peace, time. And most people spend so long trying to look rich, they never actually become free. So whether you choose real estate, index funds, or both, just make sure you're building a life you actually want to live, not one that only sounds impressive at dinner parties. Because 20 years from now, your bank account won't just reflect your investments. It'll reflect your decisions, your habits, your patience, and every excuse you kept telling yourself along the way. Time moves a lot faster than people think. So start now. Start messy. Start small. Just start. Because the people who build wealth aren't always smarter. They just stop waiting. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Evans Invest for more cinematic finance stories that expose the hidden psychology of money, wealth, and financial freedom. And remember, the most dangerous financial decision is doing nothing while pretending you still have time.